Amber Lynn is a broker in Raleigh, North Carolina. She's affiliated with Tate Realtors, and she joins the podcast. Amber, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Great to connect with you. Full disclosure, we are both affiliated with Tate Realtors. So thanks again. Amber, before we dive into your business today, share for listeners a little bit of your background, hometown, education, and what drew you to real estate as a career?
Yeah. So I have lived in Raleigh my entire life. I'm one of the rare natives. Um, Fantastic. Love Raleigh. Wonderful place to live and work. I went to North Raleigh Christian Academy, graduated in 2006. 2005, I'm sorry. I got my license in 2006, my real estate license. I knew pretty early on that this is what I wanted to do. My mom became an agent when I was around 12 or 13, I believe. And so I just thoroughly enjoyed watching her and just loved all things real estate. One of my favorite things to do was go and look at open houses on the weekends, which is kind of strange for a 12-year-old to want to do that, but I loved it. So right out of high school, I sort of told my parents, I can go and do the college thing. I'm happy to do that, but I know what I want to do, and that's real estate. So got my license immediately. And at 18 and 19, you don't really know a lot of people that want to buy a home. So I went into the transaction management part of it, which was very helpful to sort of get me familiar with how things work, contracts, inspections. And so that was a really good segue for me. So I did that for several years. And then I started selling, and my mom and I just formed a team. So I have been doing this almost 18 years now.
I think that launching your career as a transaction coordinator must have been of great value long term for your career, a great way to create a really solid foundation for your career. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I learned a lot.
We often advocate too for new brokers to connect with a mentor or a team, and someone who has achieved some success in the industry and is working in such a way that you would like to also work in your career too.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like joining your mom was sort of a no brainer. It sounds like.
Absolutely. Yes. And I have learned so much from her, and she is still actively selling. So she and we now have another girl, Jordan Dunn, on our team. So it's the three of us, and it's wonderful.
How what did 2024 look like for you guys?
We had a good year. We still, like I said, let's see, 20, it wasn't as good as 22 and 23.
Hmm.
But we still had a really good year. Um, th- you know, Election year, interest rates, things kind of slowed down a little bit, but we just we kept at it, and we really worked our database and the farming. That is one thing that I think I have learned from my mom that is so important. I think farming is important, and networking, but I have watched my mother really work her database harder than anything, and taking care of those people and staying in contact with them, and just the referrals that you get. Just since January of this year, I've had two clients that have reached out to me. One I sold a house to 8 years ago, one 12 years ago, and are now ready to sell. But because I stay in constant contact with those people, they remember me. And there's no bigger compliment to me than selling someone a house 10 years ago, and they still remember me and had a good experience and want to call me back um, to help them again. So that is one thing I think that the biggest thing that I have learned is how important your database is, and that sphere of influence, and staying connected with those people.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's such a hot topic in these conversations. The way that real estate agents can set their business apart and differentiate themselves within the marketplace, but also the importance of fundamental marketing strategies. And some things don't change. The importance of your database and referrals has has been, a staple in real estate success for decades. And you brought up farming, which is very interesting to me because I've had that conversation with a couple other very highly successful brokers, and I would love to get some examples of how you and your team are farming the community. What sort of strategy you employ there? Getting back to 2024, your comments on 2024, I think, line up with pretty much everyone else that
Yeah.
I've talked to recently, and myself included. 2024 was, I don't want to say there was a dip, but there was, I think, kind of a little bit of a dip
Yeah.
in activity.
Yeah, there was. And, it's also, these are hard conversations with people that purchased in 20, 21,
Yeah,
22 that are now wanting to sell, and they paid, some of them paid 150,000 over. So
yeah,
trying to set those realistic expectations now, like, hey, yes, you did pay $75,000 over. So trying to recoup that, and it's just, you're really having to educate
yeah.
these people that paid so much over when the market was crazy. But so I'll be the first to admit I have not always farmed. Farming is sort of it's a long game. You're not going to
Mhm.
farm a neighborhood and just get a ton of leads within your first few months. It could take years to farm. Um, so, in conjunction with farming and the database, I think there is, you kind of have to have a good balance between the two, and just even not to go back to just only the database, but just little simple touches that have gotten people to contact me. For Valentine's Day, I send my sphere $5 Starbucks cards and just say, hey, just appreciate you. Just wanted to say that. And last year, when my mom sent the Starbucks cards out, she did the same thing. She got 2 listings off of it within the first week of sending out those cards. People called her. So that's important. And again, farming is definitely important. But you just have to be patient and just know that it's not going to be something that's going to be super quick. It might be a fluke and you might get a listing out of those first few weeks, but that's rare. You have to really be consistent with the farming, and farm areas and neighborhoods that you've sold in. I know some agents will just farm, anything in their area, but when those people call you, I think one of the things they're going to ask is, have you ever sold in my neighborhood?
Right.
So really farm in places that you have listed or sold. And then another thing, Jordan on our team has had wonderful success with open houses. I think you would be shocked at the people that are out at these open houses that have no representation. They're just out on their own looking. And so I think that is also a wonderful way for, especially, I mean, it's great to still do it now with experienced agents, seasoned agents, but for newer agents, I think open houses are still a fantastic way to meet people and get clients.
I agree. I think that's one of the uh, fundamental places to start as a new broker to um, work open houses every weekend, maybe multiple times a week. And it's a
Yeah.
great way to start learning the questions that potential buyers are asking, and where to find the information, because you're not going to have all the answers right away. But yeah, that's just a great, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Low hanging fruit, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's
Yeah,
just it's such a simple thing. You're just sitting there, people are coming to you. And Jordan did an open house for me a couple months ago. A couple came in and they liked the house. They wanted to buy it. And so she got the buy side of that. And then she got to list their home. So it was over $1 million right there just from that one couple walking in. And
yeah,
like I said, I think these agents would be so surprised at the amount of people that are out there looking that do not have an agent. Most people just assume that everyone has a real estate agent. They don't, or they
yeah.
did and they didn't have a good experience. And so it's just a really great way to meet people.
The Valentine's cards, yeah. It's just a perfect example of how just staying top of mind can
Yeah.
trigger someone to contact you for a listing appointment. Just
Exactly.
again, just staying top of mind. I want to circle back to that and some more examples here in just a second.
Yeah.
But I want to also talk more about farming. And you made a very good point that you have to be prepared to be patient. And just like farming, it requires, uh, picking an area and nurturing it, and it takes time before you can start harvesting the fruits of that labor and your efforts there. So, what have you found? I've had brokers on in the past, and myself included, who will select a neighborhood or an area of a zip code and do regular, like a postcard, direct mail, monthly or quarterly. What
Yeah.
are some other examples of farming that kind of come to mind for you?
Yeah, I've really only done the postcards. There's a another agent in my office. Is it our I can't think of the name of it, but it's basically like a newsletter
Yeah.
um that we have done. I did that one before. But I found most people that are going to you don't want something that they're just going to throw into the trash. So for me, sending out these recipe cards, I just don't think that that's something of interest to people. So showing them what has sold around them. So just a very simple, eye-catching, attention-grabbing, a map, and it'll show, five different sold signs around exactly where they live and say, these are the homes that have just sold around you. This is what they're selling for. That's what people care about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Sort of a market snapshot, sort of
Mhm.
a little quick and easy market report for them to look at
Yeah.
that's delivered directly and gives them some insights and maybe some inspiration to list their home.
Yeah,
So, I
exactly.
think
That's all
that's
they care
useful
about.
information.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they just want to see what their neighbor's house sold for.
yeah,
And I think to me personally, I think every month is a bit much. You don't want to, um, yeah, you just don't want to send it every month. So I think every 2 months is
mhm,
plenty, and just kind of keep them up to date on what's going on around them.
yeah. I agree. Yeah. So you think you lean more toward like bi-monthly or quarterly is
Yeah,
a enough cadence.
I do.
And also, when you're doing direct mail is costly. I mean, it's an expensive way to advertise.
Yeah,
It's effective though, but to your point, I think that it's effective given enough time and given
absolutely.
enough. You have to continue showing up every couple of months or every quarter, and it's an investment and a commitment for sure.
Absolutely. And another thing, especially for newer agents, I tell them I understand, when you're not selling anything right away, utilize social media. It's free.
Hmm.
And that's how I stay connected with so many of my clients is social media. And I think, it just depends on, for me, it's Instagram. I get way more views, way more hits, interaction on Instagram. For my mom, her age group, that's Facebook. So she posts more on Facebook. But my goodness, if you're not using social media right now, what are you doing? It
Yeah.
costs nothing. Now, if you want to boost your post, yes, you can pay, but you know, essentially it's free marketing for you, and you can touch so many people that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it'd be, even if that's not your main marketing channel, it's one still worth at least participating in because it is free. I mean, you may as well
Absolutely.
utilize it. I've found that Facebook ads and to a certain extent Instagram posts as well, but Facebook ads specifically are still best bang for the buck
Agree.
advertising,
Agree.
and it's been a great way to grow. That's really my primary channel for growing an email list, a list of email subscribers.
Mhm.
And you'll be surprised. Like I would recommend advertising a monthly market report and an email newsletter. You'd be surprised. Like, yeah, you won't get 100,000 subscribers, but you'd be surprised who would subscribe to that. It has surprised me, which is
Yeah,
great. So I don't have to tease them with, I don't have to overpromise with all this other amazing content. I'm literally just going to share the new market report each month with them, maybe a couple of links to helpful posts, but um, uh, the open rate is high, the unsubscribe rate is really low,
yeah.
and yeah, so yeah, I think social media is still totally relevant. Sure, it's very competitive, but it's worth investing in. definitely.
Absolutely. And I do a newsletter as well, just like a neighborhood news type thing.
Yeah.
That, and again, it's wonderful. You can see who's opening it, which articles that they're clicking on. And Alan Tate is great. We have a monthly blog, so I can kind of cherry pick, some articles from that. I can share listings of mine, things that I've recently sold. Um, and yeah, I think that's a great way to touch people as well.
I do the same thing. I do love the monthly blog that Alan Tate provides. So
Yeah.
I'll share usually I'll pick the highlights from the blog for that month and
Yeah.
share links to that as well. Saves me the time of having to produce that content myself. And a lot of the content is just they could just do such a better job than I could anyway.
And they're
So
short and sweet. They're to the
yeah,
point, it might be
yeah,
2 or 3 paragraphs, but hey, here are the top 3 things that you need to do to get your home ready. And so I think,
yeah.
yeah, that's a great way. And like you said, it's there, it's written for you. So you can go pick out the best articles that you think is going to appeal to your people. And then you can share again, listings and things like that on there. So that's been a good thing.
Absolutely. So what have been would you say have been some of the other keys to your success and your team's success over the years? I know, we touched on um, ways that you market, the value of connecting and staying top of mind with your database. What are some ways that your brand and your team sort of stand apart in the industry, and how do you differentiate yourself? Because that's really tough to do in this industry where it's really hard to find that unique value proposition, right?
Right. I think just again, the team approach, I think going on listing appointment, not that teams, yeah, there's some independent agents that do fabulous, but for us, I think showing up to listing appointments, offering that team support, you not only have one, but you now have 3 or however many agents are on your team actively working, trying to help you achieve that goal of getting your home sold. I think Alan Tate has wonderful marketing tools, which is one of the reasons why we have stayed so long. We have AdWorks, which is online marketing that target buyers in your area, your zip code that are looking. And just going back to the basics of just really forming relationships, genuine relationships with our clients. And, I hate to keep going back to my mom, but she's just been such a wonderful example for me. It's not that she will sit down and say, okay, I need to take 3 clients out to lunch today or this week. She genuinely wants to meet with those people to see how they're doing. And so just being genuine with your clients, and they truly do become like family and friends for me. So just staying in touch with those people, nurturing those relationships. And I find, so I have 2 Facebook accounts. I have a personal and a business because I don't want to share just business on my personal account, but I try to, on my business account, every now and then, I'll just kind of share some personal family things, photos of my daughter, photos of my dog, just to, connect a little more with people, because I don't think people only want to see business stuff from you. So that's sort of something that I try to do is kind of have that human personal touch with it as well.
Well, I agree with that, separating a personal account and a business account. I've heard a lot of, there seems to be 2 schools of thought, and I don't pretend to know which one is better. I can tell you that I personally select, um, I have a separate business account on Facebook
Mhm.
uh, from my personal account. My Instagram accounts are all business or related to my business. So I don't have a quote personal account on Instagram, but the I firmly believe that I prefer to have one account personal that's for family and friends.
Yeah.
And then mainly because I don't want to bombard my family and friends with my business.
Right. Yeah.
And then I create the business account for folks who do want to follow that,
Exactly.
that business. So, and then the other school of thought is no, you are your business. Your personal account should be your business account. But my personal opinion is that I don't subscribe to that. I prefer to separate those two.
Agree. And I think, again, like you said, there's no right or wrong. It's just what works for you. And that's just what I prefer to do. And, every now and then I'll throw some personal stuff in because I know
Yeah,
my clients do want to see,
sure.
how my daughter's doing. They care, they're friends. But,
Yeah,
I think you just have to find a good mix. But I do agree with having a personal and a business. But that's just what's worked for me.
I agree too with sprinkling in some personal content in your business account as well. Ben Bowen, who was on this podcast a few months ago, super highly successful luxury broker here in the Charlotte market and all around great person. He mentioned also that he's like kind of an 80-20 on his business account and on Instagram. He'll sprinkle in it's 80% business listings and purchases and business related with and he'll sprinkle in select parts of his personal life that seem to really engage with the followers he has on Instagram. They really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That's fantastic. I would say that's probably about what I do as well.
Your dog is joining us. What's your dog's
I
name?
know. I've tried my best. I've
That's
given him
okay.
everything I can under the desk. So we just got a golden doodle. He's only 8 months,
Oh,
eight
oh
months
wow.
old. And yeah, I thought giving him a bone, he would leave me alone, but he hears you talking, so he wants to see what's going on.
Sure, no problem at all. We're dog friendly on this podcast. Don't
Okay,
worry about it
good,
at
good,
all.
good. His name is Tucker.
Tucker. Okay,
Yes,
cool. Yeah, I've got two at home as well. So yeah, we love dogs here on the
I
podcast.
know. I've tried to keep him at bay, but
Totally fine, no problem. Um, Back to something I wanted to ask you about the database, and you provided the example of the $5 Starbucks gift card, which is so smart. I could go off on a tangent about how important it is to invest a little in loving on your database.
yeah.
But what are some other examples of what you guys do throughout the year to stay top of mind with your database?
I send out refrigerator magnet calendars
Hmm.
in the end of December, January. My clients love those. And I can say when I've gone to their homes, they have been up on the refrigerator. So just nice calendars. We do the Starbucks cards for Valentine's Day. St. Patrick's Day, we send out little scratch off tickets
Oh
and
yeah, lucky.
cards.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
we do
I
that. We send
gotcha.
it good luck. And then if you win, you have to share with me,
Right, right.
since I bought the ticket. And then just other, it just depends on, sometimes we do little goodie bags like in July for the 4th of July. We'll do pies
Mhm.
in November. Um, let's see
I was
what
going to
else.
ask you about like in-person events too. So the pie event, that would be an in-person pickup, or do you deliver those?
I will deliver those. And then usually
Okay,
around Christmas, I'll try to do something else, whether that's just dropping off like a little poinsettia or some chocolates, cookie, it just depends.
sure.
But we did one client appreciation event. Um, we had a decent turnout. I have just found that taking something to them or mailing something to them, everyone's lives are so busy. It's hard to get everyone together on one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we haven't really done many of those. I would probably like to do another one. It's just finding out what would be best and work for everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
we
is a
typically
difficult
just do.
situation to try to
Yeah,
make it
it is.
appealing to most people. Yeah.
Exactly. But we call them our pop buys. So, just dropping off something to them or just sending them something in the mail, a gift card in the mail that's what has worked best for us.
You guys do some planning early in the year or toward the end of each year on what you're going to do the following year and kind of schedule it out.
We do. Yes, we do. So usually we get together around Thanksgiving, our team, and we'll have a nice dinner and kind of think of things, discuss what's worked, what hasn't worked, and ideas that we have for the coming year.
I'm a huge advocate of networking. It both here locally with my community, and then obviously one of the big inspirations for launching this podcast is to connect with outstanding agents like yourself, and selfishly to learn as much as I can from you. And I've written down all these great ideas that you've shared already. So I always learn so much from these conversations. I wanted to know, what are your thoughts? How important do you think it is, or how important is professional networking to your business?
Extremely important. And we have had with agents, it's similar to you. You're in you're Lake Norman. Um, we have Alan Tate events where we can go and meet other agents. And I think that has been wonderful, meeting people that they can meet you in person. They trust you. It's one thing to, have a relocation referral, or have a phone conversation with somebody, but meeting other agents in other areas face to face has been wonderful. And that way, they feel comfortable sending clients to you, and they know that you're going to take care of them, and they can say that, yes, I have met this person in person, and she's professional. She carries herself well. I know that you're going to be in good hands. So not only just out networking with other people, but other agents is just as important, because there's agents from all over, and there's so many people moving to Raleigh, and there's so many agents that they could refer them to you. So very, very important.
The secret's out about North Carolina. Raleigh ranks really high in quality of life, and being one of the most desirable places to live in the country, along with Charlotte,
Yeah.
and is growing exponentially, it seems like. Of course, North Carolina High Country is still one of the greatest areas to have. If you can't live full time, at least have a second home in the High
Yeah.
Country. It still, super popular, and really has been kind of recognized globally. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's great to see the growth. Some of it has been difficult to keep up with, but yeah,
It
it is
has. It
it is
has.
great to see the growth.
And with COVID, I think I've moved so many people here from California, New York, Chicago, and they realized with their companies and their positions that they didn't have to go into the office every single day. They could do what they're doing from home. So a lot of people have moved here. Just the the cost of living and the quality of life here. Our schools, you're 2 hours to the beach, you're 2 hours to the mountains, and they end up moving here, and then their family comes to visit and they fall in love with the area. So then we end up selling, the grandparents the home, or the cousins and brothers and sisters. So everyone tends to fall in love with it once they move here.
For sure. Yeah. I'm currently, I don't recall the number offhand. I don't have the data handy, but around 7 or 8 buyer clients that I'm working with currently, they're all from out of state.
Yeah.
Several from California, Arizona, Ohio, um, New York, and yeah, it's amazing. It's a lot of fun. Of course, working with buyers can be time consuming, but it's also so much fun to be the tour guide, and I think it's always exciting for someone to relocate to a new area, especially when they're doing it by choice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Exactly. And then, I also love when some of them are like, oh my gosh, when I heard I was moving to North Carolina, I thought it was just going to be country. And it's like,
right.
no, Raleigh is fantastic. We have a huge downtown. We have great restaurants and shops, and, it's so, and then they end up they fall in love with it. So yes. And like I said, I've lived here my whole life. So I know it well. And I love to show them around Raleigh and all the surrounding areas, and what we have to offer.
Networking, I think, locally too, not just with potential referral partners, who the usual suspects who can be so helpful to growing a real estate business, mortgage, insurance, CPAs, the list goes on.
Right.
But also, I think it's really important to network and nurture relationships with other agents within your market, within your community, because at some point we're going to be on opposing sides, and a several guests have mentioned the value in having a warm relationship with your colleagues locally, because it can, if everything else being equal, it could mean the difference between closing that deal or losing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And that's why I always tell, today I'm working on 2 inspection reports, and it's like, with the other agent, we all have the same goal. Let's get this to closing. And so if you
that's
can
right.
have good communication, have a good relationship with the other agent, typically you can get, now sometimes you just have a buyer and a seller that are just neither one are willing to budge. But
Uh,
if you have 2 good agents on either side that are willing to work with each other, you can normally get the deal done.
yeah, it goes a long way
Yeah.
toward making everybody happy and getting it done for sure. Before I let you go, Amber, I wanted to ask you, I always like to ask my guests, and this is great for you because you've been in the industry for 18 years, very successful. You had a wonderful mentor who is also your mom, um, and you have a lot of experience, and would love to get a little bit of advice or maybe some tips you might have for anyone considering getting into the industry as a real estate broker, or agent, and or those who are early in their journey and may feel overwhelmed with, what do I do? How do I grow this business? What sort of tips or advice would you have for anyone in those positions?
I would say first, join the right company that's going to give you proper coaching and training. Um, this is not to push Alan Tate, because I know there are a lot of companies out there that are just as wonderful as Alan Tate, but Alan Tate has a Winner's Edge program that all of the agents have to go through, and it's fantastic. There's a lot of role play teaching you how to go on things that are so simple to us who have done it for so long. A new agent, that's extremely intimidating, and you don't know what to say when you go on a listing appointment because you've never been on one. You've never sold a house or listed a house before. So I think the role play of that, and just find a good company that is going to train you and support you and offer programs and help you with marketing, because you go into it and you don't know anything. And then beyond that, once you find a good company, find a mentor. That is so important. Find a successful agent within your company and latch on to them and learn as much as you possibly can from them. And some people want to join a team, some don't. I think it's extremely beneficial if you can find a team to join. A mentor is just as good, but if you can find a good team to be on and have that support and bounce ideas off of each other, and I think you really need that. So it starts with a good company first, and then find a mentor and get all the help and support that you can, and just learn as much as you possibly can from them. And if you need to be, like I said, a transaction coordinator for a little while, and just understand that your business is not going to, now some it might, some lucky people might, but your business is not going to explode overnight, but stick with it. And it'll eventually, it'll all click for you.
I totally agree with the first selecting the right company who's set up to support a new agent who needs those helpful tools, the digital marketing tools, the education. And sure, I have no problem with the shameless plug that Alan Tate is a great organization. If you're in the North or South Carolina area and you're within a short distance of an Alan Tate footprint, I would highly recommend, because the company does provide so many educational opportunities, so much support, and so many cool tools for newer agents specifically, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
so I think that's great, and also the value of a mentor can't be overstated. Like it's so important, I think, for a new agent to connect with a successful broker and start being a sponge and learning all those important skills.
absolutely. And I know myself and other experienced agents, we love nothing more than to help new agents and share. And I don't know everything. I still learn things, just
Sure.
because I've done it
Yeah.
for, however long I have. I still learn new things, but I also, I've learned a lot of what works and what doesn't work. And so I love to share that with the new agents. And so, I think sometimes they feel intimidated. They don't want to bug or, you know, an experienced agent, but I think most of the time these agents will love to help these new agents get going, because it can be stressful, but it is such a fun and rewarding and wonderful career if you can stick with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree too that don't be intimidated or scared to ask a an experienced agent in your office for advice or ways that you might be able to help them to kind of shadow them and form some sort of mentorship. I think most experienced agents would be open and honored and
Yeah.
flattered, honestly, to
Yeah.
to have that opportunity. And you mentioned, after 18 years, you still don't know everything, and that's true. We will never know everything. One great example is a close friend of mine who's a broker here in the office, and she's been in the industry for 20 years, and she's highly successful, one of the top producing agents in the Charlotte metro area, specifically in the luxury niche. And she says, "Oh my gosh, I call our broker in charge or our team leader almost every day with questions." You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so yeah,
And that's and Mark, who I know you had said, who's our broker in charge. I call him
uh,
all the time too, or I'll text him and I'm like, I've never heard of this before. What, but, and it is, and the industry is just ever changing. And then there's just,
yeah,
there's always something that comes up. You think you've seen and dealt with it all. And, there's always
yeah,
something crazy that happens. And so again, that's when it's really important to come back and have that good support of a good broker in charge that you can call if you ever have questions, and just having a good backing behind you.
absolutely, yeah, 100% agree with that. Amber, I want to repeat, of course, how much I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join the podcast. This really means a lot to me. I truly appreciate it. And on top of that, now when I have a client who's looking for an outstanding agent in the Raleigh area, I know exactly who to call. So I really
Thank
appreciate you
you.
joining.
Thank you.
Um,
This was fun. I appreciate it.
how can listeners learn more about you and connect with you? These may be agents in other markets who need a contact in Raleigh. How can they find you?
So my website is amberlynnhomes.com, and my Instagram and Facebook is the same. It's Amber Lynn Realtor.
Perfect. I'll have that information in the description for this episode and the links, of course, and look forward to tagging you on Instagram when we release this episode. Amber, really truly appreciate it. Thanks again, Amber Lynn, an epic agent with Tate Realtors, Raleigh, North Carolina. Amber, thanks for joining the podcast.
Thank you. Bye.